So 2 weeks ago, I released a video going over all the details surrounding the reported Halo CE remake and the ridiculousness that is 343 Industries' resentment to the original Halo creators and their no Bungie rule. Well now, with hardly any break, a new development has come forth, shedding even more light on 343's awful mismanagement. Before reading the post, I would like to mention that there's no need for me to censor his name. This person shared their opinion on a public platform, fully aware that it can be seen by anyone. And fans deserve to know the people involved in the development of their favorite games. Plus, this person's name can easily be discovered as many people have shown screenshots of his post. The post, which is from last year, had gone unnoticed until recently. It's still as important as it was when he originally posted it. It comes from a 343 dev who is a producer on Halo and who has also worked on Halo Infinite, and it reads as follows. I honestly don't think I could work on a game that glorifies or fantasizes modern guns. Call of Duty, Battlefield, Rainbow Six. I've had moments I've struggled with Halo, but the weapons and world is pretty sci-fi, which creates a large enough separation from reality. That is very alarming, and I'll get into why in just a moment, but first of all, let me be clear that I'm not trying to bash this person or incite any form of harassment towards them. Any sense of singling them out is simply a result of the situation at hand. This person holds a significant role at 343 Industries, and it highlights the questionable hiring practices at 343. Since their post raises red flags, it's important to address it, and I encourage others to do the same. I understand if some people are hesitant to engage in conversations around this, and I think we all know the reasons why they would be. However, many people did speak up about it. The post went viral and was too serious to ignore. Let's go over the popular responses chronologically. Hailey was the first to quote this 343 dev's post. Let's read what she had to say about it. Unbelievable. This is the current producer on Halo. Why is he allowed to work on it? If you can't differentiate between fiction and reality and get upset by guns in video games and view shooter games, including Halo, as celebrations of firearms, then you have mental issues and shouldn't be involved in developing a shooter game, let alone be the producer of one. This isn't fair on the fans, who deserve quality games made by competent people that enjoy working on the games that fans love. Would you want someone who admits they struggled with Halo to continue working on Halo? Hailey makes some very good points here. It's important to have people working on the game who are dedicated and excited about their work, and who can effectively manage any challenges that may arise. Team leaders especially should be motivated, inspiring, and enthusiastic about the game they're involved in. It's essential to have people who genuinely love and are committed to the game, not only for the fans, but also for the teams responsible for bringing the game to life. However, if you have someone who struggles with Halo working on Halo, then its development will struggle, plain and simple. Having someone on the team who has trouble coping with the very game they're working on is going to have a negative impact on its development. You can't expect a developer to work at their best and fulfill their responsibilities properly if they don't even enjoy the core aspect of the game. Hailey goes on to say, if a game upsets you and you know your mental issues are negatively impacting your productivity, you should avoid working on that game out of respect for the franchise and its fans, as well as the company that owns it. Just another example of how stupid 343 is and shows their awful approach to Halo's development. They refuse to hire the original creators of Halo but want to keep people like this. I know it sounds harsh, but a company should do what's right for the business and the consumer. Microsoft shouldn't be tolerating this. This is Halo we're talking about here. I've noticed that many people who share similar opinions regarding games often decorate their profiles with flags or a list of mental illnesses. Why is that? Genuinely curious. Make of the last part what you will. She makes some excellent points in her post and some very compelling arguments. So Hailey's post was getting a lot of attention fairly quickly and started blowing up with likes. Soon after, another user named Savvy joined in and also quoted Nick, and before you knew it, the whole thing went viral beyond just the Halo community. Nick's post was getting flooded with replies and quotes, with many people telling him to step down or saying he shouldn't be involved in the game. Some were also venting their frustrations about the current state of Halo and directing their anger towards 343. Let's take a look at what Savvy said. A producer for Halo can't separate fiction and reality. He's fine with murder, you just can't do it with a modern gun. These are the people working on video games. These type who are overly sensitive, who choose to virtue signal, who can't just tell a story without a direct parallel to some modern day problem. How are you working for Halo and struggling with the depiction of guns? Perhaps it would be healthier for all parties if you went and worked on something more akin to a farming sim. Do you also have issues with knives, cars, and coconuts? Those are involved in the unaliving process, or is it just the modern guns? What makes a modern gun? Anyway, this guy is part of the censorship crowd because if it was up to him, he wouldn't let someone depict a modern gun. The gun is not sentient. Mental health is the problem. Any sick person who takes another life, regardless of tool, is a problem. Okay, Savvy made a pretty thought-provoking post there. It's got some solid points in it and makes us question if Nick might also be sensitive to other themes in video games, like the depiction of murder and death. Is he also upset by these unpleasant themes, but just chose not to mention that? Who knows? Halo heavily features warfare and violence. Maybe guns weren't the only thing he was struggling with. Other objects and concepts related to violence exist in the Halo universe, but where do you draw the line? At what point do you stop differentiating between those subjects and their real-world consequences? It makes you think. As she said though, I feel like it would be healthier all around for a developer like him to work on some other game instead. Halo's got some serious mature stuff in it. If the themes he's currently dealing with are taking a toll on him and he can't bite the bullet, it's time for him to step away. As Nick's post started going viral, it became the main discussion in the Halo community. Mint Blitz, one of the biggest and most influential Halo content creators in the community, posted this in agreement. If you don't like guns in video games and it's that bad that it makes you uncomfortable, why work on a first-person military-themed shooter? I don't understand. That's perfectly aligned with what we've been discussing, but the interesting thing about this is that he posted it without directly quoting the producer, left out context, which confused people, and then deleted the post a few hours later. Someone managed to snag a screenshot of the post before it was deleted, to which he responded with his reason for deleting it being, because there's a difference between a civil debate and going after a single employee. That's a real person, and regardless of how much I dislike certain handlings of the Halo franchise, I'm not going to leave a tweet up when it starts to get far too toxic. There's a clear fear with speaking up here, just due to the nature of social media. I totally get not wanting to take it too far, but you don't have full control of that. Some people were already being toxic, and it's hard to stop that. But there were also many who were civil and expressed their opinions respectfully. You have to remember that this is a big deal, and given how bad the state of Halo has been over the last decade, it's only natural that emotions would flare up. Confrontation amounts to change, and just because there are back and forths, it doesn't mean it's not worth continuing. Sometimes you have to fight for what's right, and sometimes an understanding is all that's missing. You shouldn't just back out when conflict arises. Mint Blitz also made a video talking about this, and there was something he said in his video that caught my attention, which was,
as soon as you try to get your point across and it isn't respectful, the change you want to see happen goes right out the window. The person or the group who's been insulted just completely shuts down, and they'll use the very insult itself as a reason to stop change.
While I agree that people should voice their opinions respectfully and avoid throwing insults, I can't help but find it strange that Remy thinks developers would use insults as a reason to stop changes that fans are requesting. That would be childish. No developer or creator in general should be doing that. Developers should always be open to making positive changes to the game, no matter how much criticism and heat they receive. If a developer can't handle criticism or insults and resorts to stubbornly ignoring feedback out of spite or committing to changes in retaliation, it shows a lack of mental strength and suitability for the job. These actions not only harm the game and the company behind it, but also damage the studio's reputation. Anyway, we shouldn't be silencing ourselves or others for exposing problems and voicing thoughts on it. Being afraid to speak up and let criticisms be known only shows you're willing to risk keeping problems in order to protect feelings or your own image. Sure, keeping your mouth shut might help you look like a good guy and keep your relationship with certain people intact, but that shouldn't be priority when something you love is being harmed. This goes for everybody too, but especially those with influence. One last post worth mentioning which attracted a ton of attention was one from Grummz, also known as Mark Kern. He's a former video game executive who had major roles in developing World of Warcraft, Diablo 2, and StarCraft. He's also served as a producer in the past too. Hailey's post had really blown up, catching Grummz' attention, and after seeing the comments from the producer at 343, he decided to share his own thoughts on the matter. The producer for Halo went viral with this tweet. I've seen this sort of crisis of conscience before. A lead I worked with one day felt video games did more harm than good in terms of addiction. Like any pleasurable activity, you can overdo it, even eating. I think you have to step back and realize games do far more good than harm. I've had so many people message me and let me know that World of Warcraft or Diablo saved their lives, rescued them from depression, or helped them find their forever love. But the harm that this producer mentions here is not valid. There have been countless studies that show that games do not correlate with gun violence. Another great post which offers valuable insight that many could benefit from. The Halo producer may not have explicitly said, I struggled with Halo because guns harm people in real life, but he alludes to it. Why else would he be uncomfortable with guns if not because of the horrific acts involving them that occur in real life? It's the association with those acts that made him struggle on Halo, clearly. However, someone in that position should be able to separate fiction from reality. I just think that people who have a job in game development shouldn't need to be reminded that they're working on a video game, something that's almost always supposed to be an escape from reality. Looking back at what this Halo producer said, it's revealing yet another big problem in 343's management. Again, don't focus on the person himself, but his ideology and role at 343. He's a producer, which is an executive position that involves collaborating closely with designers and the publisher to reach agreements on developmental changes. This role primarily focuses on the business aspects of production rather than the creative aspects. Furthermore, a producer is responsible for overseeing the employees involved in creating the games and ensuring that the project's vision is achieved within the allocated budget. While we don't know his specific responsibilities at 343, his role is definitely significant. So there's this guy who doesn't like guns or how they're portrayed in video games, yet he's a producer on a shooter game. Okay, I mean, I understand where he's coming from with the uncomfortable feelings surrounding the glorifications or fantasies of modern guns. I think it's very reasonable to feel this way, considering that guns are a sensitive topic due to the amount of gun violence in the last decade. It's possible that this person has been personally affected by it too, but any mentally healthy individual should be able to differentiate between fiction and reality. Halo isn't nearly as realistic as some other games, like the ones he mentioned, yet he still struggled with it. Halo has historically had marginally realistic weapons, but were those pushing it too? Maybe he was just struggling in Halo Infinite because they took a more realistic approach with the guns.
Ah, the armory.
Infinite has the most visceral feeling guns out of all the Halo games. All the UNSC weapons were given official model names such as the Mark 50 Sidekick, the VK-78 Commando Rifle, the CQS-48 Bulldog, and the M392 Bandit. I mean, all of this just seems unnecessarily realistic, but the game is centered around Spartans and the UNSC, right? It's not like it's a Halo game which is heavily based in science fiction. What about all the dark themes and events that are present in the Halo games? They're mature content too, but I guess that's perfectly fine, huh? Well, actually, the games aren't considered mature now. They're rated T for teen. Interesting how that happened. I may be rambling a bit, but while Halo does technically glorify guns, like with how cool and fun some weapons are, it definitely doesn't glorify them in the way that this person makes it seem. If you genuinely feel that way and are so uncomfortable with it that you struggle with developing Halo, then maybe you shouldn't be in that position? As someone who dictates what elements make the final cut of a game and manages those who work on it, there's a high likelihood that aspects of the game will change due to that discomfort with guns, even if subtly. But that's assuming this person's role covers those areas of development. Even if it doesn't, his attitude and mindset will impact Halo's development in one way or another. For a franchise that's been continually declining in its quality, identity, and popularity, we really don't need a producer who's afraid of what's in Halo. It's harsh to say, but it is the truth. Halo needs people who are genuinely passionate about it working on it. People who love what's in it, not fear it. I can't help but feel for all the outstandingly talented people who are truly passionate about Halo to the core, who want to work on it but can't because 343 are instead hiring people who have little passion for the franchise, people who share similar beliefs and ideologies, or people who are just unfit for the job. You can see why this is upsetting, right? The management at 343 really seem to not know how to pick the right people for the job. We've heard stories about 343's catastrophic leadership of the past, but is the current leadership actually better? Let's look back at Halo 4's development. In 2013, it was revealed that Frank O'Connor, the former franchise creative director, said in an interview, "We've had people who we hired who hated Halo because of X." Fast forward to Halo Infinite, almost 10 years later, and we're virtually seeing a repeat. They hired someone who doesn't like an aspect of Halo, and he's a producer. Who knows what other kind of people they hired and are still hiring? It's not every day that a dev comes out and shares personal feelings like that, so who's to say that half the studio isn't full of people who dislike Halo or other aspects of it? All we know is what we've seen, off-putting game elements and lack of features, proof of 343 disrespecting and rejecting the original creators of Halo, and now a clear-cut confession confirming mismanagement. The ridiculousness never seems to end with this company. 343 is notorious for hiring incompetent and inappropriate people for the job, as was mentioned in my previous video where Hailey talked about Alex Wakeford, Snickerdoodle, and Cowgirly 343. If you haven't already, I recommend checking it out. Don't just slide all this under the rug and dismiss it. People need to know this. It should be acknowledged and discussed within the community in a respectful manner, not kept quiet. Halo will never get better if people continue to let this mishandling of the franchise fester. And once again, if you have influence over the community and over the decisions being made at 343 Industries and Microsoft, you have power. What you say and don't say matters. Use that influence to push for the changes you and others wish to see. Because at the end of the day, your voices are the ones that get heard. Many don't have that privilege. Don't let your fears dampen your voice. Speak up.